Hello, my name is Quan, and welcome to Horror by Quan, where I tell unique stories that I've written and put them in audio like storytelling format. If you like this style of storytelling, if you like any of my stories, please show some love by liking, sharing, subscribing to this content. Making it my mission that for each and every story that I make, I get better and better each and every time you listen. With that being said, the story is about to begin. I hope you enjoy. Tell me what you think. You'll see that we are in some kind of room. A muffled scream is heard. Can't hear what's going on. We see now that this is a living room. Lamps are on. Couch. Messed up. There's a guy on his knees, surrounded by 5 guys with assault rifles and a ski mask. One guy is pointing the rifle directly to the man's head. Where's your safe and the money? Just give us what you have, and that is it. The guy replies, It's over there, by my desktop. The guy with the gun looks over to the other guy that's not close to him. And that guy moves to the desktop with books. The guy moves the books and sees a safe door inside the floor. What's the combination? 36, 24, 36. Everyone stops for a moment and has an interesting look through the ski mask toward the guy on his knees. The guy with the gun shakes his head. The guy near the safe almost laughs. Seriously? You like your woman like that, huh? The guy says, Yes. The man lightly squeezes out. The man at the safe puts in the combination and unlocks. He opens the door and sees inside 7 stacks of cash held by a piece of paper. Each stack has a piece of paper around it that marks $15,000. The man pulls out a grocery bag and fills it up with the money. He ties the bag and stuffs it in his vest. All good, let's go. The man that took the money says. The guy with the gun near the man nods as another guy wraps his gun securely behind him, gets up close to the guy that's on his knees and puts him in a chokehold. The man slowly panics, but then slowly goes to unconsciousness as the guy that put him in a chokehold lets him go, having him hit the ground. He grabs the man's phone out of his pocket and sets an alarm for 20 minutes and drops it near the man's head. We now go down the hallway. There's pictures, statues, very nice pottery. The men exit through the hallway, single file, toward the exit. As they finally get to the exit, we see that the driveway is a very big driveway with a circle roundabout. Some of the guards are already either knocked out or zip tied up near one of the garden structures. The men start to do a jog or driveway toward the woods. 10 minutes have passed after a nice little jog from this group of men As they make it to a van in the woods, one of the men pulls out a set of keys under the car and presses a button to unlock the car. Everyone gets in. The driver starts the car and starts to speed off. Then there's 3 men in the back. 2 on the right, 1 on the left. 2 men on the right unmask themselves, revealing same build, same haircut, but one of them has a beard. The one on the left unmasks himself, is bald. The man with the hair in the back moves his vest to take out the money. "Hey Zach, how much we pulled?" The driver says. Zach pulls out the bag and tosses it to the guy in the passenger seat. He counts it. About 100 grand. So about 17.5 grand each. Zach smiles a little bit for the cash as everyone gets hyped up and excited. Except for one. He smiles for a bit. The guy at the end on the right. Then he has a sad look on his face. 10 minutes go by and they finally get to this warehouse. They park inside the warehouse. They get out, take off all their gear, and reveal that they were all wearing tuxedos under all that, with matching black-white combo. We now see them in their own little locker room in this warehouse. They put their stuff in their locker rooms over the names, and then head to the parking lot. The main guy that was in the passenger seat is locking up the warehouse with Zach close by, as the rest of the guys are heading to the cars, all new, shined, and waxed. Dan, the driver, looks back. "Come on, we got 1 hour before the clubs and bars close." Shane, the leader, all right. The other guy comes up, bald one. "Last one there buys everyone drinks." Chris, the third guy, "Like you're going to beat us. You're the worst driver out of the whole group." "Hey, why you got cut so deep?" Bobby responds. Shane turns around and sees Zach standing there. "I need to talk to you for a minute." Shane looks at the guys. "You guys go ahead. We'll catch up." The guys get in their cars and start to speed off as Shane and Zach slowly walk to their cars. "What's going on?" Shane asks. "I think I'm done doing this," Zach answers. "What? How? Why?" "We're putting the skills we've learned from the army to good use. Nobody gets hurt. We steal from the rich bastards that still have a shit ton of money. Oh, and we're smart enough to not even do this in the same state we live in. What's there not to like?" Shane questions. "Hurting people, causing mental trauma and paranoia," Zach answers. "We've experienced worse in the military," Shane counters. "I know. It just doesn't sit well in my mind. That's all," Zach says. Shane comes right beside him and puts his arm across Zach's shoulders. "Look, you've been with us about 2 years now. We made more money than any job we ever heard about. And you're going to give that up? You got a plan?" Shane asks. "I'm going to invest some of the money in a business," Zach answers. "Okay. That's good. Hey, do one more gig. Shane responds. Shane? Zach answers. Shane looks at him for a few seconds. Look, a 4-man group is a little intimidating. 5 is scary. Just one more gig, and I'll make it a big job. And then we'll just hang out. That's it. Zach has a questionable look on his face. He's trying to think through. I'll try one more gig. That's it. No more. Thank you. Now, let's get to the club before they close. The 2 men walk to their cars, get in and drive off. The next day happens, and we see that the crew are driving around in a Jeep with a trailer right behind them. It looks like they're in a small rural town with a bunch of people walking around or bicycling. The Jeep parks next to this town's grocery store. There's a fancy black car, looks shiny and new, parked opposite of them. They all get out to admire the car. They all head into the grocery store. It's afternoon. They split up and go in different paths, looking for the assigned stuff. Dan and Chris go to the beer and wine section. Shane and Bobby are looking at the meats. And Zach is in produce, picking out some fruits and veggies. As Zach is looking at a tomato, he sees a woman with black shoulder-length hair in a dress. In her 50s but fit. She has a small basket of meats and veggies. She's scanning the aisle as she walks to Zach. Zach moves in around the tomato stand. As the woman makes her way past him, Zach looks at her as he sees the back of her dress as she vanishes behind the next aisle. The crew is in line waiting to be rung up. All of them notice the woman in the black dress as she chats up the cashier. I bet she's the owner of that car out there, Bobby says. Well, new dress, new car, they go well together, Chris says. The woman pays for items and walks out with the bags. Dan, go bring the car around and see where this rich woman leaves to. Dan nods and casually walks toward the exit as the woman makes it to the car and gets in it. The cashier starts ringing up their items as the woman drives off to the right. That would be $150, $28, cashier says. Shane starts shelling out the money from his wallet. The lady in the dress, who is she? Shane asks. Oh, that's Violet Lodeski. Friendly woman. Great pianist, if you're into that kind of music, cashier says. I'm not. Some of my friends are, but I've really heard of her. You usually see people like that in the cities. Shane starts to drag the conversation on a little bit. She's not a big city fan. She loves the nature and the outdoors. Likes to stick to herself. Casher says. Interesting. Thank you, Shane says. He starts to walk out. As the crew walks out carrying the bags, Dan pulls up in front of the store. They all start putting the stuff in the trailer. Get a look at where she took off to? Bobby asks. Straight ahead. Dan responds. Shane gets in the car, and then everyone else does. And then the car drives off. The crew are driving in the woods, lightly following behind the car. There are trees everywhere, with a house every 2 minutes. Seems like a very chill place, Zach says. After our gig, I might move out here. What's the intel so far? Nothing yet. The crew come across what looks like a subdivision as the black car pulls in that area. The Jeep slowly cruises by as they keep going past it and observing everything. This must be the rich folks suburb, Bobby mocks. Yeah, so rich no one else lives there besides this chick. What? Dan says as every person checks out the area and sees almost all the houses have no cars or anything that shouts out that there's life besides the one spot that the lady pulls in with the car. They must have bought this place early, Chris says as they continue driving toward the woods. The crew goes to a campsite. It's almost nighttime, with a fire brightening up the area. Alright guys, here is the info. Dan shouts out for everybody. Violet is a high-performing pianist that has gotten multiple awards and invested in certain stocks and metals, most notably gold, he says. How much we talking? Shane asks. It's been some bars every once in a while, but on an expedition in 2020, she does adventuring on the side. She stumbled across some ancient ruins in Europe that had her donate 75% of her gold findings, which anointed to $50 million. Everyone stops and looks at Dan. So she might be living off close to, 10 mil with no additional work? Sounds good, especially the gold, Chris says. Any relationships? Zach questions. Yes. Around that same time, her boyfriend of 7 years caught a mysterious virus and was put into a condition close to critical condition. He has to be closely monitored. Dan answers. This keeps getting better and better, Bobby says. I don't like it, Zach counters. Zach, Shane kind of breaks the silence. We have been getting jobs that require a lot of work and planning. This seems like one we could do in less than a week's time. It's that easy, Shane says. Yeah, so stop being a punk and get in on this, Bobby says. Zach stands up and looks at Bobby. Bobby then stands up too. Most of our missions have been on people who are rich, but not deathly ill. We go for the strong, not the weak, Zach commands. Okay, look, I feel you, Dan says to try to calm down the situation. But we're only robbing what they got on hand. That's how it's always been. And no harm will come to them as long as they don't resist, Dan says. They don't even have security guards. They are trying to live humble. In this small town, crime is almost non-existent, Bobby says. After a stare down about what stretches out to be more of a few seconds between Bobby and Zach, Zach slowly sits down, and Bobby does the same. This is the easiest and maybe biggest job we will have. We should expect at least 1 mil saved up in precious metals with some stacks. Recon is less than 24 hours. All in favor of this job. Aye, Shane announces. Aye, Bobby answers. Aye, Dan answers. Aye, Chris answers. They all turn and look at Zach. Zach looks at all of them. Feel a slight tension raise a little bit. Zach, this is the last job we'll do, Shane states. Aye, Zach says. Great, Shane says. Everyone, let's start loosening up again. As everyone agrees and starts to loosen up a bit and chill out by the fire and get back to what they were doing before. We will enjoy this weekend. Dan, continue on with any research. We plan to do this in 1 week, Shane announces. Feel the energy that everyone agrees, and they get back to what they were doing. It's been 1 week since that event happened. Everyone except Zach is at the warehouse, all geared up, having their uniforms or ski masks on, ready to go. Bobby is pacing back and forth. Where is Zach? He's 5 minutes late, Bobby shouts. He'll be here, Shane says. Suddenly, Shane's phone rings. He goes to it and picks it up. Where are you at? Shane questions. I can't do it. I'm done, Zach says on the other side of the phone. Zach, come on, man. This is the last time. Shane tries to convince him. No, I can't. Every job has affected me in a negative way. left a pit in my stomach. And the pit doesn't go away. And the last one affected me the most. I just can't. I'm sorry. Zach says. I understand. I'll let the guys know. And I'll catch up with you later. All right? Shane says. Thanks, man. Zach says. Shane hangs up on the phone and turns to the crew. Zach isn't coming, Shane says. What? Huh? What? Everyone's kind of mumbles in. This makes this job bad. I've thought of Zach as our little good luck charm, Dan says. Yeah, guess he had to punk out, Bobby counters. Hey, no need for that. Besides, you need this job more than most of us, because you have no self-control, Chris says. Bobby glares at Chris. This'll set me straight, Bobby says. You sure? Or are you going to spin on a bad habit? Chris says. Bobby starts to walk toward Chris with some ill intention until Shane steps in front of him. Focus. We have a job to do. Once it's done, you two can box it out. Let's get moving, Shane says, while being between what feels like two growling dogs. Dan goes to the van and starts it up. Chris gets in the van while still looking at Bobby, leaving Bobby to move to the front seat with Dan. Once all the door closes, the van starts to speed off. A few hours later, we see the van parked in some woods as the team starts to move through the woods and gets to the clearing of a spacious backyard that connects to a lot of the houses, with the target house in the middle. It's a clear night sky with a half moon seen and a breeze blowing through every minute, as the only house with lights on is the target house. The team quietly moves forward to the back of the house with ski mask on and weapons armed. They get to the back door and listen to see where the people could be. Dan gets a sledgehammer and positions it near the door. It's locked and looks to Shane. Shane nods in approval as Dan does 2 practice swings in the air before a final full-body swing, smacking the door open, and Shane, Bobby, and Chris rush in with guns pointed straight ahead. They speed walk in the kitchen and toward the living room, where we see Violet rush to her door, but Shane grabs her waist and carries her to the couch and throws her on it. Guns pointed in her face as Bobby stares at her and Chris and Dan examine the place. Flat screen TV, comfy green couch, lounge chair, pictures, antique lamps are seen in the area. If you cooperate, no one gets hurt, Shane says. What do you want? Violet asks. She seems more calmed down than before, but still high alert. Looking for the money and gold, Shane answers. Violet looks and examines the ski mask crew. There is a safe downstairs in the basement, Violet answers. What's the combination? Bobby asks. I don't know, Violet replies. Bobby gets closer to her and puts the end of the gun near her chest. Tell us the combination or this could end badly, Bobby threatens. I'm telling you, I don't know. Take my cards and put 200, I got 200 cash in my wallet as well, but I don't know, Violet says. Bobby is about to step closer until Shane grabs his shoulder. The man might know. And does a telescope motion with his hand over his eyes, signaling them to go search. They both nod and go down the hallway. Bobby turns for a split second toward Shane, and in that moment, Violet gets a glass cup with wine in it. She tosses it in Bobby's face, with the glass and wine going all over his eyes. And she pushes Bobby and Shane. Bobby lands on Shane, knocking Shane down to the ground. As she jets off to the door, down the stairs. Bobby shakes his face from glass and wine, pissed off, and starts to jet toward Violet. Shane stands up as Chris and Dan rush to his aid. Violet has went down the stairs to the basement and has gotten to a weapons shelf with a handgun. Bobby's footsteps are being heard as Violet rushes to get the magazine and the gun. Bobby makes it to the room Violet is in. She turns around to fire. Time is frozen still. It feels as if Shane and everyone else hear the shot, causing their hearts to stop for a second. No. Shane repeats as he rushes down the steps to see Bobby with his rifle down. Shane goes in to the room Bobby's in to see Violet on the ground, holding her chest where blood is slowly flowing out. Shane grabs Bobby aggressively. The hell, Bobby? Hurt, not kill, Shane growls at him. She pulled a knife on me. She was intending to use it. I had no choice, Bobby said. Dan and Chris get to where Shane is at. They see Violet trying to control her breathing in her final moments. Dang. We need to call 911, Chris says. Shane darts his eyes at Chris as Bobby does the same thing while walking toward him. Are you crazy? Bobby says. We get what we came for and we leave. We'll let the man make the call, Bobby states as he makes sure Chris understands. Dan slowly goes to the door that's in the basement and opens it. You see a safe on one side of the room with a coffin in the middle of the room. There's candles lit all around. Dan has a confused look on his face. I found the safe and the coffin, Dan shouts as he gets close to the coffin and lifts up the door. And the coffin looks like just dirt. Maybe the guy died, Dan says as he closes the coffin and is about to go to the safe until he hears something from the ceiling. He looks up to see a man's face with red eyes in the darkness as the man jumps Dan before he can scream. Everyone hears the tackle, go to where Dan is at, and see this pale man ripping parts of Dan's throat out as Dan is reaching for help. Bobby points the rifle at this man, but in a split second the man is up and holding Dan as a shield while drinking his blood. Bobby starts shooting, but all the shots only hit Dan's body. Bobby runs and Chris and Shane rush behind him as the man is about to chase them down until he sees Violet on the floor. A few seconds pass as Bobby reaches the top of the stairs and looks down the stairs to see Shane and Chris coming up the stairs. Chris looks behind him to see if the man is behind them. There is no signs as he gets past Bobby, and as Bobby's about to close the door, but something's in the way. Bobby takes a quick look to see what's going on and sees the pale man with claw-like fingernails and red eyes holding the door open with one hand and is slowly pushing it open. Help me out, Bobby shouts as Shane responds and shoulder pushes the door with Bobby, but it seems to only move a few inches and stops. Chris goes to the opening and fires on the man as a few of the shots hit him and push him back, almost closing the door until the man turns to mist and the door slams shut. Bobby and Shane brace against the door and look around to find something to keep the door shut while noticing the mist is slowly creeping in and covering the carpet. This is insane, Shane says. No, Doug. Chris, drag that sofa over here, Bobby says. Chris goes to the sofa until something slashes his leg, causing him to fall on his knees in pain. Then a hand comes from the mist, grabs his chin, and twists it, causing him to break his neck as he falls into the thick mist. Bobby and Chris see this sight and start to sprint to the door as the pale man levitates out of the mist, standing up, with the bottom of his face drenched in blood. The two men are sprinting as fast as they can outside in the open grass under the night sky. Chris looks back to see the pale man with glowing eyes standing at the door entrance. The duo make it to the forest and start to lighten the jog, and then Chris stops. Bobby notices Chris isn't moving and then turns to Chris. What are you doing? Come on, Bobby says. No. This is our fate. Zach was right. This shouldn't have been our last job. We shouldn't have done this for this long. We shouldn't have done this at all. And now, my brothers in arms are dead because of greed, Shane says. Bobby gives a quizzical look at Shane. Really? We are doing this now? Bobby responds. You know, if I didn't have any respect for you or Zach, I think you're both... Interrupted by a sound of a hand reaching into Shane's chest, holding his heart, lifting him up slowly, revealing the pale man with red eyes. Bobby grabs his weapon and gets ready to aim, but Shane's dead body is thrown on top of him, causing him to fall. He shoves the body off and stands up only to be surrounded by mist. I sense you feel no remorse for what you do. the man says. What? Bobby shouts out while looking around in the mist. Gun pointed, ready. For the pain you caused, the trauma you injected, the people you've hurt, the voice says. We only selected people that could gain it back, that had enough, that it didn't matter, Bobby said. You are convincing yourself that you are doing the right when you know it's wrong. You are a taker. You take whatever you want through any means is necessary, without a care in the world, the voice says. You see, I can read you because the voice stops as Bobby looks around. Nothing. I'm a taker myself, the man says as he goes in to Bobby, grabs his throat and lifts him up with one hand, using the other hand to take away his weapon. But I've done this for a long time. I had to strategize until I found her, and she found me, and now you took that away from me and caused a lot of mischief. So I'm going to do the thing to you that will make amends. 2 weeks have passed. It's during the afternoon, and a fancy car pulls up with Zach in the driver's seat to the house where his crew attacked. Zach gets out the car and starts walking to the house. He seems like he's rehearsing something, like actors do with their lines. He knocks on the door and keeps rehearsing until the door opens to see who opens the door and is left speechless. Looks like Bobby. Only he's a bit more skinny, in a wheelchair. Down to his ankles and feet have been chopped off. Bobby and Zach's eyes meet as they're both speechless. A tear rolls down Bobby's cheek. What? Zach kind of spills out. Who is it, Bobby? A man's voice is heard from inside the house as he appears behind Bobby and sees Zach. Hello, I'm Dante. Usually Bobby is more talkative. Can I help you? Dante asks while making sure to stay behind Bobby and the entrance. Yes. I was wondering if I could clean any windows or wash your house or driveway. I do some pressure washing, Zach states. Uh-oh. We don't have any windows, and the place is still fairly new. But I'm curious as what would be the cost? Dante asked. It would be free. I'm trying to do some good in the community, Zach replies. Ah, a good Samaritan. Interesting. I will keep that in mind. What's your name? Dante says. Zach, sir. Zach. Nice name. Tell me, Zach, do you know much about the Samaritans? No, sir. Well, Zach, Dante as he moves in front of Bobby so he and Zach could see each other. Samaritans are people that are native to Samaria. You see, in those times, they were, in a way, quite the opposite group of the Jews. And they likely didn't like each other. But then a moment happened to where a Samaritan was helping some Jews, and thus a good Samaritan was born. I mean, could you believe that all it took was a good deed from one person that redeemed a whole tribe of people? Dante says as he leans closer to Zach, while still being in the shade of the house. Zach felt a little chill down his spine. Now, you keep being a good Samaritan and do good. For you see, Bobby is in the process of being redeemed, so he can be a good Samaritan in the end. And remember, a good Samaritan not only does good for himself, he does good for the community. He also does good for his family and his friends, so that he doesn't risk bringing shame or harm to them. Right? Zach just nods in agreement. Dante does a slight nod and slowly closes the door. Zach starts walking to his car, and once he gets inside and cranks it, he looks one more time at the house and then starts to drive out the neighborhood. As we see, houses are now being filled up with people moving in. The end.